Okay, I've started recording, right? So now you are saying that there is one more way of doing it. We can say thread dot sleep. Okay, we'll say 20,000. That means it will be in seconds, and I can either have to put it inside try catch, otherwise it will throw an error. I'll simply can extend, sorry, throw it in the method, but I'll just quickly do this. So this thread dot sleep, right? This thread dot sleep is actually the worst way of applying a synchronization. This should never happen. Okay. Now there are some cases where you have to use it. That means there is absolutely no way you could find out in what time the response would come, and the response doesn't always has to be from a browser. It could also be from a database, maybe, right? Because sometimes you have to fire a query to the database, and database taking some time to give the response, and you somehow not sure because the environment is so unstable that you cannot put a condition. That is very rare,
Yes,
rare,
sir, they
rare.
said it's an extreme case of explicit wait. They said.
Right, it's a bad case. I mean, you should never use it in my, so there are different opinions on this, but 99.999% people would say don't use this. This will this will kind of completely destroy the performance of, it has the potential of completely destroying the potential of your or performance of your framework. The point is there are two dangers to this. One danger is uh, that if you use it, it will destroy it, because 20 seconds means sometimes if you say somehow do this, 2 minutes are gone, right? Or more than that. I'm maybe I'm not calculating it right, but uh, it just sets the wrong precedence, because if you are doing it, someone else would come in your framework, in your team. They would say, okay, it's okay to use set.slim. They'll also use it. And if there is a developer who is not well versed, well experienced, and he sees in the framework that these set.sleeps are being used, that he will also go forward and use it, right? And this is completely wrong, because if somehow this thread.sleep goes inside a for loop by mistake or by something, because what you see right now is a very simple script. You can actually go through each and every line, and you can figure out the mistakes. But in actual live frameworks, there are 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 lines of code. You cannot possibly go and see and check everything everywhere, right? So always avoid this, or like take a oath never to use this. Okay. When
Yes, sir.
in my project, my team, I usually review the work of all the developers, right? If I see this, I just scold them very hard. This should never be used, in my opinion. I have actually seen frameworks, kind of getting the performance stall just because of this. Lot of thread.sleeps was there, and the framework was so slow that each script was taking 50 minutes to run, right? Because once you start using it, there's no end to it. Because if you use it, you cannot, if you use it in a framework, you cannot ask someone else, you cannot say anything to anyone else who is also using it later. And right now I am training you as to become a framework architect, right? You guys will be, so we are right now learning framework development. We are not automating test case. We are acting as a framework development developer. So if you are a framework developer and you are doing this wrong, it's completely wrong on your part. You're making a huge mistake. Okay, so never use this. As simple as that. Period.
So Akasa, there's one more drawback I think of this
Mhm.
thread or sleep.
Okay.
So if we give 60 seconds in thread or sleep, and if we give 60 seconds in explicit wait, so for example, we are finding one element and we are using explicit wait. So we have given 60 seconds, and if that element appears in 20 seconds, so after 20 seconds, your script will go on. But in thread or sleep, it will wait for 60 seconds.
Exactly. This
Whether that
that
element,
that's the
yeah.
reason this is a problem, right? That's the reason it's a problem. That's the reason it is a huge performance drawback. For the very reason you said. If the application is loading in, for example, in this case also, let's say I'm not using this, I'm just using this, and the application is loading within 10 seconds, it will still keep on waiting for this period of time. That means you are stopping the execution pointer, and you are instructing it to sleep. You're saying don't go forward, the sleep, irrespective of whatever is the outer world situation is, you just go and sleep. That is the reason it brings so much performance damage, right? So this is the actually I somehow missed to explain this point. Maybe I focus more on the precedence part, wrong precedence. But yeah, this is the main issue because of which this is also called as hard coded weight. So you are hard coding the weight here, and you are saying just go to sleep. Don't move forward, right? So I was just focusing on what are the damages it could do later, right? And what you explained was actually the underlying reason why it should be avoided. Okay, and because of this reason, it brings very huge damages to the performance of your script. Yeah. Any more further doubts in this thread.sleep, or suggestions, or anything which you think I missed? Okay, we'll go forward then. So this is how you do explicit wait. Here I am using find element by dot xpath. I think you guys are aware what is xpath. Okay. Uh, if not, then of course we are going to do that later as well. I'm going to cover this, so you guys have to tell me as well. Okay. For example, there is some topic which happened happened like last month, and a few things which are not which was not covered. You let me know if I in between also, you can stop me and tell me. For example, I know xpath has been covered, but still, if you have doubts, you tell me straight away. I'll just cover immediately. Okay, so xpath, I think everyone knows now.
Yes, but just the parent, sibling,
Okay, that's
preceding,
I
succeeding.
know.
Yeah, those things are remaining. Yeah, that's
Okay,
that.
that I'll cover, don't worry. That I'm aware of, so we'll cover that. So I that part we'll do later, because few of you might get it, difficult for you to grasp it for now. So we'll do that later. Okay, but for now you understand what this double slash input value and go is, right? And anyone has any concern with this? Okay. Now here I am again using explicit weight, and here in this case I am using it for title. So I'm saying once I find an element and click on the click button, then the page loads, right? So I'm waiting for the title till the title appears as Amazon.in laptop, right? Till then wait. And how to get the title? How to get the title? Okay, so to get the title, let's do a laptop for example. To get the title, what I'm saying is title actually appears at the top here, right? It actually is displayed under the head and the title. Where is it? This one. Okay, so I'm instructing my code to wait for the title until this becomes Amazon.in laptop, because I know the moment I search for a product called as laptop, the title actually changes. So I'm waiting till that title is changed so that I could be sure that yeah, the page is loaded and the search is successful. And the same thing I'm asserting here. Okay. Uh, Now these assertions which I'm putting here, they are very simple. Now this test case assertion is not complete. For example, I am only checking whether a title is coming. What if the product list is not coming? What if the product list is coming, but when I search for laptop, it is showing me the mobile, right? I'm not validating that here. So in a true test case, in a right test case, you also have to validate that as well. So in a simple test case, one assertion is not enough. You need to put more assertions which will actually help you catching the defect when the actual test case will execute. Okay. For the demo purposes, or you can say for simplicity purposes, I'm just putting in simple assertions. But later on, when we have more test cases on top of it, then you have to add more assertion steps here. Okay. Then I'll go to the next branch because I have to cover a lot many and we are losing time. So I'll just quickly go to the next branch here. Checkout, force checkout. Okay, now I am here. Let's see what do we have in this branch. So in this branch also it's simple, because in this branch again we have pulled the code which was getting repeated unnecessarily, right? So I'll go here. move setup, to the parent class, to the parent class, right? So that's the reason I have done. So I have saying move before and after introduction to the base class. What I've done is, if you notice, the setup and cleanup was also present in both the test classes, and I have to move it basically. So you see here we have after and before, and in this here also we have after and before. I have moved them to the test base. So again, this piece of code is not getting repeated. This is again centralized. So while you code, you always make sure, whenever you code, you make sure that you are not repeating the code. If something is getting repeated, you have to do something about it. Inheritance is not the answer for all the removing all the reusable code, but it is one of the way. So if there is a parent class and you are in the child class, the code is getting repeated, that means you are doing something wrong. That means you have to move them to the top, so that it's a general thumb rule. It is not always rigidly applied, otherwise you will mess things up. You need to know exactly, if we do this, am I impacting the other child classes, right? Here we are kind of developing a framework wherein we are saying we have a test base, and this test base will have all the things which could be reused in child test classes. This is our idea. So that's the reason I'm able to do this. I'm able to move all of this which was present here, and I have moved it to the test based classes. Okay, now this is simple enough, nothing more to explain in this. I'll move on to the next one. Now here, okay, so let me, before I move on here, let me show you the problem statement here, because whenever you do each enhancement, there has to be a problem statement which you are solving, right? So that is how I am structuring the step-by-step enhancements. So what is the next problem statement? The next problem statement is the how you initialize your drivers. So for example, I need to run this. For example, I need to run this in a Mozilla environment or Firefox, or I need to run this in a Safari. What I have to do? I have to come here and modify my class files. Again, a very wrong thing to. It's again in a violation of, you can say, solid principle. Now, there are lot of principles which I think I have not discussed in this batch at least. Uh, so it's called a solid, SOLID. Maybe I'll post the link later. But one of the idea in solid principle is, your class should be open for extension but closed for modification. That means if you want to do something, you should not be modifying your code. For example, I need to, previously it was running it on Chrome, isn't it? It was running it on Chrome, but then I want to run it on Firefox. So what I have to do? I have to come here and modify the class files. Wrong. I need to implement a logic, a mechanism in such a way so that if I want to modify, or if I want to run my test cases on Chrome or Mozilla or Safari, I know should not be any need to modify my code. I should not come into the code, modify it, recompile it, deploy it, and then run it. No, I should be able to configure it from outside itself without having to modify my code at all. Okay, so this is again a problem statement. So I have identified a problem statement, then I'll fix it. So this is how you enhance your framework one step at a time. So I'll go and move on to the next one. I'll check out. And to solve this problem, now you see, whatever I'm telling you is a standard practices. I'm not inventing them. Okay, neither should you. You should not be inventing your own mechanism of doing things, because there are already established principles and mechanism and good practices and design patterns. You should be making use of them. So that's the reason, that's what I'm trying to do. So to manage these kind of problem statements, there is a concept called as factory, right? It comes under factory design pattern broadly, but it's a very simple implementation of factory design pattern, wherein to initialize an object, to create an object, you can make use of a method, and in the method you have to pass a string, and the moment you pass a string, based on what you have passed, it will give you the right object. Okay, so in this case, I have created a WebDriver factory class. Then I have a method, sorry, variable called as WebDriver, and then we have a method called as WebDriver get WebDriver for browser. The idea would be, whenever you need a driver object, you're going to always call this method, and you're going to pass the browser name, and based on the browser name, it will give you the right browser. So if you're saying calling get WebDriver for browser, you're passing Chrome here. it will get matched here, and it will return you the driver object, initialize and give the driver object to you. If you need a Firefox, you will pass Firefox and it will return you the Firefox browser. And if you are not passing the right, then it will actually throw an exception. It will say you are passing the wrong browser, I cannot initialize this kind of browser. And in the same method, you are also doing these things, because whenever you are initializing a driver, these things has to happen. So you are putting it these things here and eventually returning the driver. Where I'm using it inside test base, right? So here what I'm doing, previously you remember there was a step here called as driver equal to new Chrome driver. Now instead of writing driver equal to new Chrome driver, I'm writing driver web driver factory, which is this. And if you notice this, that this method is a static method. That means I don't have to create an object of this. I can directly call this method. So that's how basically WebDriver design pattern really looks like. uh, and I'm saying this again, this is not really an factory design pattern. This is similar to how you would implement it, but in factory design pattern there are more things to do, but this is a very simple implementation of it, wherein it gives you a mechanism to create the object without actually having to use new keywords. So you are kind of abstracting this initialization of the objects in this way, so that whenever anyone, for example, anyone has to come forward and create the driver or create any kind of object, they will actually make use of the method directly. This is how you make things easy for a developer or a test automation developer to create scripts, right? This is part of the framework development. So you kind of hide all the details, or you create the reusable methods for everyone to use, right? And factory design pattern is just one way of implementing it, or designing it. And now driver equal to new web driver factory, get driver for browser, and you are passing the string called as Chrome. So you're not using any new keyword, you are just passing the Chrome string, and this will return you the Chrome. If you want to have a Firefox, for example, then you will pass what? You will pass a Firefox here, and it will give you the driver. But this doesn't solve the problem which we originally discussed. Remember, we discussed that if we want to run it in the Firefox, uh, I do should not be changing anything. But here also I will have to change something here. I'll have to pass Firefox here, then it will run in Firefox. So this is just the first step. Now to achieve what we originally planned to achieve, we'll have to do one more thing, which I've added in the next branch. So I'll tell you that in a while. But so far, any question with this driver factory thing? Because right now nothing has changed, it's just WebDriver factory, and I have just, instead of writing new Chrome driver, I have just called the method. That's all I have done. So any doubt in this?
So, sir, in this case, should we have to download all the driver
Hmm.
executables?
Yes, you will have to do that, because if you're running it on Chrome driver, I already have it. If you would notice, I am not passing any system.property webdriver.chrome.driver, because I have kept this inside. Let me show you that. So I have actually kept this inside my vision, inside my folder itself. So I have Chrome driver here, right? So if you want to run it on Firefox, then it driver has to be here. Driver has to be here. If you want to run Safari, that Safari driver has to be here. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So yeah. Now next is the original problem statement which you discussed, that if I want to run this on multiple browser or different browser, I should not be making changes in the code, isn't it? So to implement this, we have this fifth branch called as send browser info from Maven command line. So now there's many ways of doing this. Either you will set it in a config file, or some environment variable somewhere, which would somehow you will manage to pass inside the code. But simplest way of doing it is in the passing it in the Maven command line, or simple command line. So I'll go into this branch to demonstrate what I mean by this. All right. So here something has changed. Okay. Uh, Now, if I go here, so WebDriver factory remains the same, nothing changed here. In the test base, I have added a method called as get browser name. And in the setup, I have a call here, get browser name. So this get browser name, let me explain this first. So I'm saying string browser default Chrome. That means the default browser will always will be Chrome. So that means if nothing is passed, if you're not saying anything, it will by default will run it on Chrome. Then I'm saying browser sent from command, and I'm saying system.get property browser. Okay. So how this thing works is when you trigger the build and execution of this framework, by the way, this is a Maven framework. When you run Maven clean install or Maven clean test, right? At that point, you also have an option to pass the browser variable. What you see here is a browser variable. So if I say Maven clean install, and if I want to say I need to set this browser, right? I need to set this browser variable with some value. So what I how I'll do that? I'll say hyphen d. Hyphen d here actually represents you want to pass the JVM argument, and I'll say browser is equal to Chrome or browser is equal to Firefox. So the moment I do this, this will return me. Oops. The moment I do this, this will actually return me, this statement returns me whatever I am passing from here, because I'm saying I want to get system.get property, which actually represents this D, and then I'm saying browser. That means the browser value is Firefox, because that's what I've said when I triggered this. So this browser will be replaced with this Firefox. This statement actually gives me Firefox in return. If I say Safari, so this statement gives me Safari. Okay, so that's what I've written. If you say Maven clean install d browser Safari, it will, this browser sent from command will have the value as Safari, and then this will be returned here because that's what I've called. So I'm saying browser get browser name. This method will be called. By default, the value will be Chrome. If this is set, that means something is sent here from here. It will check if browser sent from command is null. That means nothing is sent. If nothing is sent, then default will be returned. If I am sending something, then that value will be saved here, and then that value will be returned, and it will be saved in the browser, and that is what is passed in the get WebDriver for browser here. And that's how the driver would know which browser I have to trigger. So this is how we have solved the problem which I originally discussed and said, if you wish to run your automation pack on a specific browser, you should not be made to change the code. The code should remain static. You should have the mechanism to handle it from the command line or outside, not modifying the code. So now if I want to run it on Firefox, oops, again made a mistake. If I want to run it from Firefox, all I have to do is to say Firefox, right? So I've triggered the run. It will not run, it will fail because I don't have the Firefox library. So it will say that it will throw an error saying that the path of that is not available, etc., etc. And if I say Safari, for example, then it would simply say that this browser is not there. Let's see what it say. No such browser is implemented. Browser name sent is Safari. From where it's coming? It's coming from here, because I said if Chrome is there, then run Chrome. Firefox, then Firefox. If no browser is defined, then you reply this that this is what is sent. It is not implemented. Any doubt for now in this?
Akasa, can we use SOP instead of set property method? We
Can
can
we
just take
use?
the input from SOP system.println and get uh,
No.
the
See,
browser name from the user.
no. So you are saying the user will enter it. You're saying the some
Yes.
user will enter it, right? That's a wrong thing to do. The true automation doesn't work that way. You remember
So
I talked about CI/CD pipelines, right? So in a CI/CD pipeline, you remember you were you there when I talked about this branch, which is this one?
No, actually.
So as you said about CI/CD pipeline, so in that case, should we also add the command for the installation of drivers in the YAML file?
Yes, you can. It depends basically where you have configured your CI/CD pipeline. If it is in Jenkins, then yes, you will have to do it, and you will have to tell Jenkins in some way that where is your driver files are kept. Yes, you will have to configure all of that as well. Right now, it's a local development environment. Everything I've kept inside a folder, right? But then
Yes.
if you doing it in CI/CD pipeline, then you will have to tell it in some way, and there are ways to do it. For example, in this case, in when I demonstrated this is also selenium test. I think, is it a selenium test? No, there is no selenium, I think, in this. This is a simple one. But we will implement CI/CD here. So then I'll explain how you manage these things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But original question was, can we take input from the user, right? That's a wrong. I mean, that's not how the test automation works. So imagine something like this. In this pipeline, everything has to happen automatically, right? So automation test is one of the component in the CI/CD pipeline. You will not it will not give you an option to give a prompt where you can actually give some browser information. This has to be seamless. Okay.
Okay.
So we will configure it in such a way so that we could pass it from the command line, so that you don't do that. Actually, you don't give a pop-up firmware, because this is not a software you're creating. This is a script which you're creating, which will be part of the complete CI/CD pipeline.
Okay, what we are still giving it from a Maven command line, right? So
Yes, we are giving it from even command line, but we are
Mhm.
doing it once in the build file, or in a YAML file or a specification file, something like this. So we'll just pass it here, maven clean install -d Firefox or -d browser Chrome, and that's it. So every time the whole pipeline will run, it will take those values from here. So this is just one time setup. What if you are expecting it to give a pop-up, and then you have to be there, right? We don't want human intervention. The purpose of
okay,
this,
mhm.
yeah.
But again, sir, the issue of version will come up, right? If you are going to give the access to the user, and end user might will put up some wrong version. So in that case, it will become a lot difficult to install that library.
No, see, these pipelines, these configuration are created by DevOps people, right? You are also part of DevOps, so they will ask you where you want to run your pack. So you'll say, I will create the automation test pack, and that pack can execute on Firefox as well as on Safari. So once you establish this fact that you have to run your test automation test cases on Firefox as well as on Safari, you will add those steps here, right? And once you add those steps here, every time there is a code build, the whole test execution will happen first on Firefox and then on Chrome. And this is specified here. So you don't do that again and again and again. It's just one time setting where DevOps team and you will work together and set this file. You both will sit together and create this file, and they will ask you where your test automation and what browser your test automation should execute, and you will mention it that it should be executed something like this. So this is a one-time activity. This is how you establish or create a CI/CD pipeline.
Okay,
Am I making sense?
yes,
Yes, sir.
but I just had one small doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are running first build on Chrome and we are running second build on Firefox,
Mm-hmm.
so each time we need to go to this file and we need to change the browser. I mean,
What do you
like
mean by first build and second build?
no, I mean first time I want to execute on Chrome
Mm-hmm.
and then I want to exit on Firefox. So like we are giving some user preference. So for example, if we enter Chrome, then it will run on Chrome, and if we enter Firefox, then it will run on Firefox. So where will we enter that? I
So
mean
if you
the
want to run it
keyword
on, if
Chrome
you
or
want to,
Firefox.
so if you
Yeah.
want to run it on Chrome, for example, this is a framework, and if let's say
Mhm.
you want to run it on Chrome first, right? Oops. You want to run it on Chrome, so I'll just copy this.
So, sir, is it a cross-browser testing?
Yes, this is how you do cross-browser testing. Exactly. So I'll say run build with Maven run test on Chrome. So I will say -d browser is equal to Chrome, and then I'll say run test on Firefox, and then I'll say d browser is equal to Firefox. Okay, that's it. So what will happen every time the CI/CD pipeline will execute? The whole test pack will first run on Chrome, and then the whole test pack will then run on Firefox. If you want to run these in parallel, that also can happen. So Chrome and Firefox both will run in parallel just by making use of this YAML file. Got it?
So do we get any specific requirement from the client that application has to be tested on a specific browser?
Yes, you always get that. So whenever the application is built, there's a pre-specifications which the client would say that the application should run it on Chrome, or application should also run it on Firefox. All the open websites, the website which are business to consumer, B2C, wherein consumers is the whole world, for example, it's always has to be tested on cross browser as well as on cross platform, because they know their audience. Different people has um, uh, depends, I mean, what kind of audience they are, right? But usually the typical use case is you have to test on Mac, Linux, Windows. This is called as cross platform. Then you will also have to test on each of these platforms. You have to test on Chrome, Firefox. Okay, so you usually
So
get these details from the client.
then, sir, again, should we go ahead with the browser versions as well, or we should not?
They can give you a specification, but that's actually too much. The thing is, there is
Okay.
always has to be a balance between the cost and what you're getting in as an output, or in return, right? The more, so because there's no limit to testing, you can test on 5 browsers, all with 5 different versions, then all of on 4 different platforms. You know how many permutation combination it could create, so it is
Yes, sir.
possible, but the client will have to pay for it then, right? So client, there has to be a balance between, there should not be an overkill. Basically, it should not be it shouldn't happen that you're doing too much, and then you're getting too little in return, because the eventually the CI/CD pipeline also has to be giving the feedback quickly. For example, here in this case, if this is a CI/CD pipeline for you, right, it has to give a feedback. So automation test has to give a feedback. If automation test is giving feedback in, let's say, one day, the whole purpose of having a CI/CD pipeline will derail, right? So this automation test case should work fast. That's the reason we have parallel execution. But if you do all of this, multiple platforms, multiple browsers, multiple versions of the browsers, then it will take a lot of time for you to complete this component, right? So there has to be trade-off between these things. So these requirements, usually your framework architect, not framework architect, solution architect tells you. Security architects, solution architects, they take these kind of calls, they take these kind of decisions. I mean, how much has to be done, because testing is limitless, right? So they give you these guidelines on what how much or where to test it. Usually, if I based on my experience, usually they will ask you on multiple browsers and one version. That's fine, that they consider okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, any more question on this? By the way, if you have not done it, if you have not done this, so I'll recommend you guys to go through it, because I created this as an assignment. I wanted you guys to do this, because here there's no Selenium, no Java. It's very simple assignment on how a CI/CD pipeline works. It's just simple. I've written all the details very clearly. It's very simple thing to do. Okay, so try this one. I've already created an assignment for this. I thought everyone has done it, because when you do this looks tricky. When you do this, you will find a lot of issues, and I want you guys to face those issues. Then only you will understand what is the CI/CD pipeline shit is all about. Okay, so please
Sir,
do this.
should
Yeah.
we, so right now we are working with the Eclipse. So should we move on to IntelliJ
No, there's no
as
need.
we have
If
worked
you
with
if you're if you're comfortable with Eclipse, use Eclipse. IntelliJ, if you're familiar with Eclipse, and if you try to move on to IntelliJ, you will unnecessarily will face some issues here and there.
Okay.
So don't complicate your journey, basically. So
So
if you
Eclipse
are completely new,
integrated with Git.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it will do everything. Eclipse has all the capabilities.
Okay,
It
sir.
has, or rather I should say, it has all the capabilities which you would need, right? So whatever you need, Eclipse provides that. I am just more comfortable with IntelliJ, mostly because I was using this in my workplace. And when I first made a switch here, I find it very difficult to know, because it is not very not, should not say intuitive, but there are different ways of doing things compared to Eclipse. So try not to go here. If you want, I mean, you be my guest. No issues there. But if you don't, if you are already well versed with Eclipse, or you are familiar with Eclipse, go with the Eclipse.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. So what I have to say now is I have done till step 5. Okay. Now I want all of you to complete till this step. There's nothing great I've done here. I've just created 2 classes where, and you don't have to go in sequence. Basically, if you go in sequence, that would be good. You don't have to create branches. This is what really you have to complete. You have to create 2 classes, 2 test cases. Implicit weight, explicit weight you have to implement. WebDriver factory you have to implement. Test base you have to implement, and you have to run it. Eventually, this should be taking arguments of Chrome and Firefox from outside, and it should work on both Chrome and Firefox. Okay. And what I need right now from you guys is to demonstrate this in a live call, right? This is how I'm going to put a pressure on you guys to actually work on the assignment, because few of you actually miss those assignments. So I'm trying to put a pressure on you by means of asking you guys to give a demo on this. So whenever there will be a deadline, and in that deadline you will going to come forward and say, explain whatever you have done. You'll share your screen and explain that. Okay. So I think 4 days is more than enough for this, or maybe let's say if you want more time, maybe 5 days I'll put for this, and just complete this much. I'll, whatever I just said, I'll put in a document, or maybe in a note what you exactly have to do, and I'll share it. But I think this pressure is needed, and I'm going to push you guys to do that. Oh guys, this, I think this meeting is going to get over. Even my battery is down, going to be, my Mac is going to get, sleep soon. So I think if there is any more questions, I'm not going to extend the call. If there's any more questions, you guys have to come forward and put in the chat or in the issue, GitHub issue forum which we have created. Create the issue there. Any issue, any further problems, personal problems, you have to ping me, and I can call you. Okay.